Well, you could be asking yourself, why am I holding a 9-volt battery? Well, simply put, as you've seen from the article, testing all of these different fire effect features, it's a bit difficult to get the sense on the page of how they actually look and how they perform on your layout. It's great to take a picture of it, but you only see it as a static image, and after all, this is all about how realistic and how convincing are the fire effects. How do the flickers look? How bright is the glow of the fire? And seeing how it actually looks is one of the things that I think is probably useful and beneficial to do as a little video. So here we are, 9-volt battery. This is the one that I've used to test all of the features in the article, as you've probably seen. And well, we're just going to go through a selection of the products, test each one, making sure we observe the polarity of our battery correctly, and see how they perform. Now, key thing to remember with these batteries is if you're not sure which is positive and which is negative, because a lot of these are LEDs, if you get the polarity the wrong way round, you can end up burning out your LED in seconds. So, big one is the negative, little one is the positive, and if you're not sure, you can just test and look on the side of the battery there. Those little symbols there sort of indicates the shape of that piece there, and the little circle inside the larger circle is obviously your positive. So let's go through them. First ones first. Let's go through the circuit boards. So these, let's start off with this one here from Train Tech. Now you can see the size of it. It's about, well, 1 centimetre square, 10mm by 10mm, a very, very small surface mount LED, and it's actually got the sticky back to it, so you can peel that away and stick it if you want to a wall. If you've got it something like a fireplace inside your building, hey presto, stick it in place. Or perhaps a house fire, you can just again stick it on the floor, perhaps put some objects around it as though they've just caught light. Imagination is really your only limitation with these things. So this one is one of the few that it doesn't actually matter which one of these is it goes to which terminal of your battery. They are, it doesn't matter, the polarity of these it's indifferent. It doesn't really matter because you've got obviously the clever circuitry on board there which will sort it all out for you. So let's just put this in play. I'm not sure how easily this will be easy to see on camera, but there we go. So the flicker effect you can probably see better on my hand than you can the actual light itself, because it is quite bright for this camera to sort of capture that effect. But you can see it's got a decent range, this LED. You're looking at around about 10 centimeters or so until it sort of fades out, which is quite realistic. You know, you think how far would that light travel around its circumference if it was, you know, in real life? And you've actually got different colours. Not only is it flickering, but it's changing the colour temperature. So it's going from a sort of warm orange to a light orange, all while flickering. And that is one of the only LEDs that I've tested to do this. So very realistic on that sense. So we'll just put that one to the side. One that's very similar to this in dimension, although it's got a little bit extra to the side with this insulation shrink wrapping stuff, is this unit from Layouts for You. Now this, you do have to observe the polarity. It's made quite easy. You can see we've got negative and positive, so if we just touch those to the battery again, and this one here isn't quite as bright. You can see the light doesn't cast as far, but this is the sort of thing that you could hide inside perhaps a little bonfire, perhaps put a few bits of wood around, and the colour of the LED doesn't change like the Train Tech version, but I think that's still a very good realistic effect. And there we go, we'll just put that one to one side. And if you wanted something that, for instance, was inside a little burner, for example, then Layouts for You also make that. So we've got one for N scale, 00 scale, and O scale. These are all 3D printed, by the way, and we've actually got a little bit of a sprinkling of appears to be wood chip over the top of these, but it's dyed wood chip. But very realistic for sort of you know, something like a burner that was just getting rid of some leaves at the bottom of somebody's garden, because they do scale quite well as leaves. The end scale version doesn't actually have anything over the top, purely because trying to scale something down for end scale I think is just that bit too difficult. So if you wanted to add something over the top you could, and all I've done is just poke the wires out the other side and connected them all together. So when we touch the battery, fingers crossed, this should all light up. So if we just do positive to positive again, negative to negative, and you can see the sort of glowing effect of the embers through the top there. You see that? So it's a subtle flicker with these three. You're not changing the colour of the LED at the same time, but I don't think that matters on something like a burner, because it's not a fiery, fierce flame. It's just a gentle glow of embers usually with these things, and you know, they tend to smoke forever because people are putting wet leaves in them, and so yeah, I think that's quite a good effect on that one there. In fact, the N scale one is probably the brightest of the lot. So this is all being tested with a 9-volt battery. All of these LEDs will run up to 12 volts, but if you wanted to dim them a bit, then just simply turn down the output of your transformer. Remember to connect them to the DC terminal, not the AC terminal, because alternating current will ruin LEDs. And if you wanted to use something like a fixed power output, then something like perhaps even a 5-volt wall transformer would do quite nicely. So you could consider doing something like that, or just a voltage regulator from the output of your 12-volt supply to the layout. So there we go. Now this retailer also produces more things. So we've got here to the right a little 3D printed barbecue, which is well, nicely made, but you'd probably need to put a little bit of filler over the top of these. Can you see the print lines there? It's almost like sort of like a wicker effect, and yeah, I'm not so sure about that on a barbecue. It would be great for outside patio furniture. You wouldn't even need to do anything to the texture at all. But for a barbecue, perhaps either run a file over the top, or just a tiny bit of filler, or some primer paint of some description. And one of the good tests of putting these through their paces here is we can see if there's any light leakage through, for example, the side of the plastic on this. We've got two bonfires here, the 00 scale and the N scale. And again, you can see that it's a sort of a base impression of the wood. So this could be used for sort of timber joists or something. Somebody's having a clean out, and they've stacked them all together. And then you could go over with something like some little twigs or branches, not to completely block out all of the light, but just to create a more sort of piled up bonfire, and use this as the structure, if you like, but not the actual visible element of the bonfire, so the light can shine through. Now both of these bonfires have a tiny bit of cotton wool in the centre there, which sort of helps to diffuse the light, if that makes sense, of the LED, so that it's not just a bright obvious glow from the LED, but it actually is softened through this cotton wool, and makes it appear more like the centre of a bonfire than an LED poking through some printed plastic. So we'll do the same again, connect it up. And there we go. Oh, get it on there. There we go. So you can see easily the N-scale version is again brighter than the 00 version, purely because of the size of the bonfire. So you haven't got as much of the light diffused there. The bonfire, the barbecue itself, you can see there's a tiny bit of leak from the LED through the side of the plastic there, which is to be expected because it hasn't been painted yet. So if you were to paint that a black colour, that would hide a lot of that just showing through there. And the top of it, you can see, is another great impression. Looks perfect for a barbecue. Yeah, I could just imagine you adding something over the top there. Somebody's barbecuing something, perhaps some chicken or some nice pieces of meat. So yes, 3 more accessories you could certainly look at adding to your layout. So we'll just put those to one side, and we shall move on to another bonfire, this time from Scale Model Scenery. Now they supply theirs, you can see a little pack in the traditional packaging, bonfires with flickering LED effect. In essence, what you get is your LED, which is glued into position on this base here, which is a piece of plastic, and over the top, oh, I've got a little piece that's come loose there, we've got some little pieces of laser cut wood. So this is sort of offcuts of timber. Somebody's having a clear out from a yard, and they've piled them all up. You could take this a step further and paint a few of them with some fluorescent paint, as Phil Parker's shown in this issue. And let's just connect it up and see how this one looks. There we go. So we haven't got the cotton wool on this one, and you can see if you look directly at the LED, it's quite piercing through the top there. But if you look side on at some areas, you struggle to find where that light is. You can see that it's there, but there's quite a lot of wood that's been placed around it. So you'd probably have to rotate this to an angle of your layout where you would guarantee to see some light through there. Just power it up before you actually stick it definitively into position, because if you've got it rotated, for example, like that on your layout, you're not going to see much of the light through. So yeah, or alternatively just remove a few pieces of wood and glue them at a different angle around the LED. So there you go, that's the one from Scale Model Scenery. Another one from Scale Model Scenery, which is part of a kit that it produces, is this little Fireplace Kit. So you get an alternative, or you get your former, if that makes sense. You've got a little fireplace there in laser cut card. Basically, it's very simple to follow. You've got some instructions that are provided. It's just a case of laminating 3 of these together, adding your choice of wallpaper, of which we have a few, your choice of fireplace surround, and then we've got all these little accessories. You get some little clocks to put on your mantle or above your hearth. We've got some little pictures to put above there on the wall. We've got some little rugs as well. Yeah, you can see 2 options there. I've actually cut this out because I've made one of them, as seen here. And if you've got the inside of a little, perhaps a card kit that you've built recently, and you'd like to just enhance the interior, perhaps there's a wall where you've seen inside the card kit there would be a chimney breast. You could add this to it, just glue straight to the wall, and hey presto, you've got yourself a little chimney breast. And you'll note at the bottom there's a little hole there, and that's because supplied with this kit are 2 LEDs with wires. So they're pre-wired, ready to go, and these are flickering LEDs, so you don't need to have any circuit boards to add to them. You can see the little resistor which has already been added there. So 2 LEDs, which means you get 2 fireplaces from the kit, and you just poke it through the bottom there, and then simply connect to the power. Now I'd glue that in place after you've glued this to your building, and I'll just demonstrate. We just connect those up. I should probably have stripped the wire a little bit more on these 2, but there we go. So you can see the flicker isn't as flickery as some of the others, but nevertheless it gives a good impression, I think, of a burning fire inside a nice fireplace there, and yeah, it would cast a nice little effect inside your cottage or your row of terraced houses, or who knows where you'd put this on your layout. But just one of those features that you look through the window of a building, and you just see this gentle glow. Just something that you'd probably want to add to the front of your layout so that you can actually see it. But yeah, nice effect there. So we just put that one to one side, and come to our last unit here, which is from Track Controls rather. This is another burning oil drum, and this one is one of the units that I actually think is very realistic without even being lit. You can see there's a sort of a painted effect there of glowing embers with some ash to the top. There aren't the same level of 3D print lines, although there is a very faint mould line there, but there we go, you can easily file that off. And this is pre-painted, wires are glued into position and ready to add to your layout. We've got a little resistor at the end of that cable there, and we'll just connect this up, positive to positive, negative to negative. And yeah, the glow on this one is quite bright. You know, it's almost cut away where it's burnt through there on the oil drum, which is I think a nice effect. You know, these things often wear thin through metal fatigue and rust, so yeah, that's just something extra that I think really adds to it. I'd probably want to paint this barrel a rusty colour actually. There's very little light leakage through where it shouldn't be. You can see just a tiny bit there at the sides. So if you painted that a rust colour, that would all disappear. And bear in mind that, you know, that's quite a bright light even on 9 volts. So I definitely wouldn't apply 12 volts to any of these effects. If anything, I'd perhaps just go around 5 volts just to have that subtle effect. But I've also dimmed the lighting in here so that you can see these effects better. So it all depends really on where your layout's positioned. If you're in a bright room with lots of light, you'll probably want to crank up the voltage to something around 12 volts just so that it can be seen. So you just need to trial that and see how it looks at wherever you're modelling these. But yeah, there you go. That's a selection of light effects. Hopefully it'll have given you a better idea as to which of these you prefer, and bearing in mind that the prices differ, so there's something there for all price points, and it just depends how far you want to take it on your layout. If you're inspired by this article and you'd like to add some of these to your layout, then please send us an email with a selection of photographs and a few words on how you've added a fire effect to your layout. We'd love to see it for our inbox section of the magazine and on our social media. Just send us an email to brm@warnersgroup.co.uk, and we'll hopefully see something from you guys soon.